there's no one that has been as successful as me consistently on YouTube in the hip hop arena.
Big Boy's Neighborhood. All righty now. Beautiful day in the neighborhood, ladies and gentlemen. We've been waiting for this one. Vlad in the neighborhood. Vlad, welcome to the neighborhood, bro.
What's up, man? My first time at an LA radio station doing an interview.
Hey, man, when you said that, Vlad, you know how we were having a conversation. I was like, no, that can't be. That can't be. But this is like, and as far as like in studio, like we did a little something over Zoom. Over Zoom, yeah. And Zoom, that timing and life, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You don't get and this is the reason why I wanted to get together. But first off, man, I know we had a chance to kind of just speak on your masterclass. Right. Now, Vlad, we didn't have a conversation. Yeah. What is this Vlad masterclass? What is that?
Right. So about a month ago on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Vlad TV, we launched the Vlad TV YouTube Masterclass. Now, we already had a membership, that has thousands of members on it, where you can get the interviews early for $5 a month. But, I've been doing this for 17 years. I feel like I'm the originator in the hip-hop world on YouTube for doing interviews and running a successful YouTube channel for 17 years now.
Hey, dude, you did YouTube when we weren't our platform wasn't YouTube because people were still trying to do the whole like, I got to get a production deal. Nobody was watching, or the way YouTube is now. When you fast forward, YouTube's undeniable, right? But you step into this thing called YouTube, and people knew YouTube, but we wasn't getting content the way that we were getting. Was it harder to book people when you say, I do a YouTube? They like, man, we looking for like BET, we looking for Channel 7, we looking for.
It's always been hard. Yeah. As independent hip hop media, it's always hard to compete with. Back then was the magazines, the radio stations, TV, BET, MTV, and so forth. So we always had to be creative with the type of people that we interviewed. Before doing the YouTube channel, I was doing DVDs. I was part of the street DVD movement. Smack was probably the biggest name at that time. We had Hot in Here DVDs. Fendi had to come up and so forth. So it was a transition from doing the DVDs into putting the content on YouTube. But in 2008, I knew that YouTube was going to be the biggest video platform on earth. Man, so I stopped everything I was doing.
I wish you would have told me. You know what I'm saying? Like, God damn it, Vlad. I remember Vlad one day, I was like, Vlad, what's next? You were like, Big, I talk to you. But no. But you smelled that this YouTube thing. Oh, yeah. Why? That early?
Well, because I saw what was happening in the DVD world. DVDs were going away, and on-demand was becoming the next thing, right? And with all those situations, you needed a real, big corporation behind you to get on BET, MTV, Netflix. I think may have been around. It was relatively small at that point. So, I was like, look, I could actually create my own content. I don't have to press up DVDs. I don't have to put them in mom and pop stores and so forth. I can create my own content. I can place it on this platform. But more importantly, when bigger platforms embed the content, that counts for your views, and that builds your audience. So I started creating content for bigger platforms for, at the time, like All Hip Hop, SOHH, Double XL, places like that, but then it was more, I was also looking at TMZ, NBC News, ABC News, like all these places Huffington Post, all places that would start to, actually embed my content. And when I saw that that's the business model, I stopped DJing, I stopped doing mixtapes, I stopped doing DVDs, I stopped hustling on the side, like everything stopped. And
went into that.
Everything went into that, 100%.
And we could say a certain year, but what year when you say I stopped everything?
2008.
So you knew.
2008, yeah. As soon as that was the year that YouTube, because YouTube had been around for a few years.
Get that DJ shit out of there.
YouTube had been around for a few years, but it was just a promotional thing. You would upload your videos and people would watch it. There was no money behind it. But then in 2008, the partner program got introduced. And that's when they actually split the ad revenue with you. They started running ads and split the ad revenue. I knew someone who knew someone at Google at the time, / YouTube, and they were a fan of my mixtapes. So they got kind of fast-tracked me onto the partner program early, and I actually had a contact over there, which these days is kind of impossible to do. But I just saw it, and I was able to do it, and everyone around me kind of laughed at me and said it was a waste of time, and I was doing my first documentary at the time, Ghost Ride the Whip. The filmmaker I was working with thought it was a waste of time. But I just saw it, and I knew that this was going to be the way, because I had done video projects. I also did American Gangster on Mac Dre. But going through these big companies, these big production companies, that's not really how I like to operate. I like to be able to say, this is what I want to do. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to record it. I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to put it out myself. And if it fails, it fails. And if it does great, I'm the only one that's going to benefit from it. But and if it fails, I'm going to be the one that's going to take the heat. But like I've never seen a royalty check from Ghost Ride the Whip, and it's been on Netflix and MTV and so forth.
Oh shit!
So I just saw the way that the industry operates, and I just like this way a lot better.
And what's crazy about that, man, is like we always look for production deals, or we gotta take it to the big house.
Right.
Even when we kind of took over our YouTube, I was still out trying to find someone that believed in these interviews and believed in this content. And I got to a point where I was like, man, fuck it, we just do it ourselves.
Right.
Because you become the network, you become the production company, and you become everything. And what's crazy now is you don't need these so-called super entities anymore.
Right.
Like back in the days, even where we're from, Vlad, you wanted to be on the major. Oh, I got to be on Def Jam. I got to be on the. And when you were on an independent, it was like, oh, because he can't get on the major.
Yeah.
And now people don't really want to get on the major.
Well,
unless you want to be a part of the machine, which is cool.
Right. It's a give and take.
Right.
Being on a major helps you.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a #1 song or a #1 album if you're not on a major, and you could tour off that forever. But if you want more money, then you go independent. So depending on how you go, everyone has their own rhythm and how they do things. Like the radio's done great for you.
Yeah.
You've excelled at it. I've never had any luck with radio, so I had to figure out another way.
I don't know, man. I'm 31 years on this, yeah, and I don't know. I think you made some different moves. You know what I'm saying? I think there was just some moves. You know how some people not. And what's crazy about you too, Vlad? I don't think people know how connected to the lifestyle, because you'll see people say, "Oh, he's a culture vulture." But people don't understand like the Bay Area. When you say Ghost Ride the Whip, when you say the DJ Vlad, when you talk about mixtapes, when you talk about DVDs, like there's a culture that you have been a part of for real.
I'll show you something.
Go ahead.
This
is not a bank statement, is it?
No.
Okay.
This right here. Hold on a second. This is my first ever photo shoot in a magazine. This is The Source, 2002.
I just saw this picture.
Yeah.
Me and DJ
you
just put that up, right?
Yeah, I put it up on Twitter.
Yeah.
2002. I just moved to New York as a DJ with dreams of making it. But yeah, like it goes back to 2000. This is 23 years ago. Yeah. So far before Vlad TV and everything else like that. I was actually a DJ that The Source featured in this photo shoot. And there's another part too where it actually shows the other DJs that are part of it. So DJ Ferris was part of it. DJ K Slade, rest in peace.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to think of DJ Tom LaRock from Florida. Yeah, it was. I go back with this, man.
I want to talk to you about Vlad TV.
Yes,
because Vlad TV. When you said Vlad TV, that is a title that is really, because it's programming. It's like if you were going to turn on anything else, you say, "Oh, I'm watching TV." Had you come out the gate as Vlad TV?
Yeah, couldn't think of a better name.
Right. Hey man,
couldn't think of a better name.
Hey dude, when you look back at that shit though, Vlad, does it feel genius though? Because you could have named it anything.
Yeah.
But now, like Vlad TV, we just know it.
I mean, everything sounds weird until you put that energy and that work behind it. I remember talking to DMC, and he was saying how ridiculous Run DMC sounded when they first came up with the name. And now it's a household name.
Yeah.
But at the time, they're like, Run DMC. Like, I'm Run, he's DMC. Like, it didn't quite make sense to anybody. But look, there's so much success and so many hit records behind that name that now Run DMC is what it is. So yeah, at the time it was nothing, and over 18 years or 17 years, put a lot of work behind it.
Hey man, when did you know? Was it from the beginning, Vlad, or when you knew that you had something? Because at some point, this is new territory. And when people say, "Man, I stepped out on faith even if I couldn't see the whole staircase," some people don't put it all into themselves. It took me years before I even realized that I need to put it all into me. Did you know that from the giddy up?
I had no choice, man. I had no choice. I was financially struggling, like trying to be a DJ. I mean, like DJs are like the food trucks of hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, yeah, they have respect and so forth, but no one's getting rich off the food trucks. It's the actual producers and the rappers and the label owners and so
and
forth.
the real hard work that you really hands-on got to put into it.
I had no other choice. You know, I had this dream of, you know, like my dream was just being part of hip hop. That was the dream. It didn't seem like a realistic dream when I was growing up. I was just a fan.
Yeah, man.
I would listen to people like you and people like Sway, and you know, to say that as I was reading every single XXL issue and every Source issue, that I would have a media company that's bigger than all these magazines combined today, I would think that's a ridiculous statement. But ultimately, over time, and I'm not talking about impact. I'm just talking about the number of viewers that happens these days. You know, with 6 million subscribers, it's just, to be part of this is just the dream itself. If you take everything else away, to just be one of the figures that contributes to hip hop is something that I never even imagined.
What was early Vlad TV?
What
was the content?
It was very similar. The vision has never really changed, and that's the whole thing about the masterclasses. We have an episode where I just break down how I started it, and the whole thing was every day to put out new exclusive content. And everyone thought that was silly. Everyone's putting out full interviews. I was clipping in 2008 because if I wanted to put out new content every day, I couldn't do a whole new interview every single day. So I had to clip it up. And I also realized that a lot of great content gets lost in an hour-and-a-half conversation. And other people, you know, these days everyone clips. But I'm not going to say I started it, but, you know, I just saw that early on, I need to clip it and I need to put those titles in and I need to get focus on this particular part of the interview.
Even the clips, Vlad, like we look at clips now and it sounds genius because we got TikTok, which is prominent. We got fucking Instagram. Like, we're talking about early days where
no Instagram, no TikTok. I don't think Twitter was around.
Right.
If it was very,
because I got on Twitter early, and I think if you go to my shit says 2011, right?
Yeah, mine.
And that's
2010.
About that's about when everybody came around.
Yeah, so there was none of that. It was just strictly, you know. But I mean, coming from the DJ background, I had an email list. I had, you know, relationships. You know, people like Mano that still do my show. I was filming him on my DVD back in the day. So and being part of hip hop and having, you know, like I had some mixtapes that were well received, like the Tupac Rap Phenomenon mixtape. It won mixtape of the year at Justo's Mixtape Awards. Rest in peace, Justo. So people were familiar with who I was in the hip hop world, and it was just a matter of, okay, this is what I'm doing now.
Masterclass.
Yeah.
Explain.
Okay, so for $100 a month, when you subscribe to the Vlad TV YouTube Masterclass, if you go to youtube.com/VladTV/join, we offer a number of classes that break down everything that I've done to actually create this channel and run it year after year. You know, and I talk about how, you know, I've generated about $30 million over the course of Vlad TV and generate millions of dollars every year. So there's an episode just about how I built it and what some of the hurdles and some of the things I did wrong. There's an episode about equipment. So for example, here's a $100 setup and here's the $40,000 setup in our New York studio. There's an episode about booking guests, all the different ways that we book guests and all the pitfalls, you know, and I kind of explain, like, listen, there are times that we reach out to 100 people and get no responses. And that's okay because that 101st
that
email
101,
or
that's
DM, that can get you something that you've always wanted. You know, I've worked on interviews for years with people until it finally happened. You know, some of the pitfalls of, you know, we paid DMX for his interview like $15,000 ahead of time, and he died before he did the interview. You know, and that money's gone.
Right.
You know, rest in peace, DMX. But, you know, you have to learn how to kind of navigate this kind of world. I'm trying to think the other episode. There's an episode that we're about to drop about memberships and how Vlad TV has made over $1 million of revenue in just memberships using content that we'd already recorded, which is giving it early to the super fans. There's an episode about how much money is actually made. So for example, I break down how one interview has made over $50,000, and it shows how it made that. I actually show the back end of the revenue and kind of, okay, so this is what happened, and this is what caused the boost, and this is how we kind of took advantage of it, and this is how we clipped it up, and this is so forth. And, you know, as well as that, every single person I interview who has a successful YouTube channel will do a segment that's exclusive to the masterclass. So for example, Gilbert Arenas, he was just on the show, and he makes millions off his YouTube channel. And he just started.
Yeah,
he just started. You know, he literally, I said, how much do you make off YouTube? Because I said, do you make more off sponsorships or YouTube? He's like, well, definitely more on sponsorships. I'm like, how much do you make on YouTube? And he's like, I don't know, let me look. And he pulled out his phone. It was like 300,000. And he showed it in the screen. So you get to see how people, well, you know, you see people like how Gilbert, who's already worth $100 million,
right,
has created a multi-million-dollar operation. And then you see people like Terrence Gangster Williams, who's Birdman's brother. I did his first interview. He's coming out of prison as a felon who's working at Tyson Chicken.
Yeah.
But after doing the interview with us, he starts his own YouTube channel. He records it at his house. He's made over $350,000 off his channel. He makes over $100,000 a year.
Damn.
In his house, no staff,
getting at
by
Tyson
himself.
Chicken.
And he went to his probation officer and said, hey, I want to quit. And they're like, well, let's see your AdSense revenue. Here you go. Great. Go ahead and quit. Congratulations.
You know what's wild about that, man, is
that's life-changing, bro.
sharing the game too.
Yeah.
You know, and especially like you crash the car a lot.
A lot.
So there's times when if somebody say, hey man, if I tell you, hey, don't walk down that alley, I got my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Hey, then you tell Mariana, don't walk down that alley, I got my ass kicked. You tell her, you don't walk down that alley.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you already seen that somebody's getting their ass whooped.
Right.
When you see somebody that say, hey man, I wish I had somebody that could have told me that I really would listen to.
Yeah.
And that's been successful with it. I wish somebody would have opened up the playbook.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing. And twice a month for MasterClass members, I actually go live just for them where they could ask me questions directly. I'll answer them, and I'll actually review their YouTube channels right there on the live. So I'll say, okay, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what you're doing well. Focus more on this. Stop doing that. Wow. And over time, the channel will grow. And I wish I had someone like that in my corner.
Yeah, man.
I never did. I had to figure it out on my own.
So 100. Hey, dude, I'm really sitting up here for myself. I ain't even talking about anybody else that's trying to build their shit. Yeah. So for $100 a month, right? What do I get for that? Do I continue to keep coming back, or is the game in the first? You know.
Well, you have all the episodes. So we have, I think, 5 classes already. Every month there's a new class. Every month there's a new exclusive interview from a successful YouTuber. And every month I go, twice a month I go live with just the members. So, look, if you're serious about your YouTube channel, if you're about to launch it, or if you have one and you're trying to grow it, $100 is nothing.
Hey, dude, you really gonna be looking at your shit like, man, Big never really joined. Because you gotta think, man, if you could pay, and especially the way that this YouTube and this social media and this being a real business owner, this game, if you could take that, because you can waste thousands of dollars on the wrong equipment.
Yeah.
You can waste hundreds and thousands of dollars just by not knowing what the fucking sound is, or how to upload, or how to.
No, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, a lot of people who I talk to, they're like, okay, like, I want to do a YouTube channel, but I'm still saving up for all this equipment. And it's like, no, here's a $100 setup. Use your phone. Here's a microphone. Get a stand, a little light, and then boom. This is how you start. When you start to grow, you could reinvest into the equipment. But when you're starting and there's no viewers, you maybe have 100 followers. What's the point of spending $5,000 on red cameras and microphones
too, Vlad,
and everything?
Some people don't know how to get out of their own way, and that's why I tell people too. Sometimes I say, you know what? Well, I got to get this, I got to get that, and I got to make sure to set. I'm like, dude, just start.
Just start.
But I do the same shit. Yeah. Where I'm like, man, I get in my own way, and even my producer Jason be like, Big, just go do it. Just go start.
Yeah, look, like I remember the new episode that's dropping in a couple of weeks. When YouTube introduced this membership program, I'm like, okay, this is a good idea for Vlad TV, but I'm like, everyone's going to clown me because, why would we pay $5? You're going to release it anyways, right, later on. So I'm like, no, I don't want to deal with the social media backlash and so forth. And after like 2 years, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And I wish I'd done it 2 years earlier.
Right.
It's the self-doubt and worrying about what other people think, as opposed to just putting it out there. And look, if it didn't work, it didn't work. But after the first month, we had like over 1,000 members. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, the membership part of the business brings in more money than Spotify, Facebook, and like TikTok and Snapchat combined. And it's a stable part of the business. When you actually have members who subscribe and pay money every single month, and we have close to 10,000 members, like on the $5 tier, like, they actually renew. There's people that have been on for 3-4 years, or 3 years since we launched. they just always renew. They always renew because they don't want to wait a month and a half for that Boosie interview.
Right.
And it's like, yo, if I just didn't have the self-doubt, I would have probably made an extra $1 million.
Yeah, you got it your own way.
No, but I was sitting there worried about what other people had to say when these people don't matter.
Right.
It's really the viewers and the fans that matter.
I didn't think that you worried about what other people said.
We're all human,
You're right.
We're all human. We're all,
Because I'm telling you, man, like I say, I get in my own way a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do you read comments? Are you a comment reader?
Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes. But, I almost look at it as a Vince McMahon kind of approach. It's like, all right, if this is bringing heat, even if it's negative, it's still bringing heat. And I know how to press buttons with people.
Right.
Like,
you know what you're doing.
Yeah, on social media, I know how to say certain things that'll get millions of impressions and so forth. So I understand the way the game works. And look, it's a lot better to get love and hate than for people to just ignore you, especially in what we do.
Yeah. There's just some times where I think I'm real trigger shy. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? I won't.
Yeah.
But also, man, we're in a business, not even in a game. We're in a business where, of course, content is king.
Yeah.
Some people could have the same content, but then there's like your shit, my shit. There's some original content that you can't get anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? And I think that with you, that membership works because you already got a great track record.
The one thing about that too, I see all these people like, oh, you got to scale your business. You got to scale your business. You got to sell your knowledge. And a lot of the, I guess a lot of the ideas sometimes a lot of people are kind of scared to go into, be like, oh, this is just a scam. Why are these people doing? But it's like, I always tell them, like, how is it a scam when these guys are already established, they're already built? They don't need the money, bro.
But you know what?
Do you not think that they actually want to teach you guys?
It depends on where it come from.
100%.
Like, if I just get some shit that just pop up on my Instagram and it's like, and I'm like, I'm doing better than you. You know what I'm saying?
Why am I
or I'm looking at some shit and it's like, I can increase your followers. And I go to your shit, you got like 317 followers. I'm like, dude, follow your fucking program. But then when you would get with like, where you say, man, we've been here since 2008. Like, where are you going to go? You know what I'm saying?
And people have said, like, well, some of the stuff, you could get it free on YouTube and so forth. And like, some of the stuff you can, but there's no one that has been as successful as me consistently on YouTube in the hip hop arena. Period. I'm essentially the Godfather. This is what other people call me. I don't like to call myself that, but people call me the Godfather because I've just been doing it longer.
Right.
If you just look at the timeline of it all, no one's had a channel that they've taken 100% seriously for 17 years, and every year it's grown. There's never been a down year. There's never been, I'm going to take a year off, or I'm going to take a month off and not upload. Every single day, 300, that was the whole thing, 365 days a year, holidays, birthdays, weekends, New Year's, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever.
Right.
We are uploading content.
What's your
every
staff,
single day.
if you don't mind my asking?
Like 11 people.
11 people.
35,000 videos.
Yeah, 35,000
that has been
videos.
uploaded, bro.
Yeah, right. Yep.
6.11 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great sub.
Yeah, and like maybe 6 or 7 billion views total, something like that.
Where do you keep your $1 million, your million people at? Like when you get the plaque?
In my New York studio.
Yeah.
I got the plaque. I really wish, like what kind of annoys me is that it jumps from 1 million to 10 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to get the next, like the diamond plaque, you need 10 million.
Oh, okay.
And I wish there was a 5 million.
Yeah, oh, okay. I thought they sent you a million, like a plaque every million.
Once you get the first million, you don't get another one until 10.
Let me talk to my producer, Jason.
Yeah.
Another one's not coming right now. Yeah, hey man, because once I got my million, I was like, oh shit. You got that, Jason? I was like, oh, once I got my million, I was like, you can't tell me nothing. Because you got to think, bro, our platforms are bigger than some of these places. Like, and people, and sometimes I get upset with this, and I just got to kind of check myself. I'll see somebody from our genre, or somebody that either we help get on, or, and go where you go. But then I'll go watch them sit on a couch somewhere else, right? Outside of the genre, outside of the relationship. And I'm like, dude, my reach is bigger than who you're sitting down with, but you don't understand my numbers. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't understand my numbers when you go sit on this couch and you thinking like, oh, I've made it, and I'm sitting over here, and I'm like, dude, by the time I take my interview with you to YouTube, to radio, to short, like already, not even combined, already killed the person that you're sitting down with. So when you talk about 6 million subs, right? There are television shows that celebrate 1 million views.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, oh, we had such and such thousands of people last night.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
That's a light day for us.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
Baby news, baby
like,
news.
but for real, man, if you look at shit down, they saying that people are watching YouTube more than, of course, more than any fucking networks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said people aren't even watching YouTube out of their devices anymore. They said now YouTube, people are sitting down at home again, watching it on their televisions, on big screens, bro.
Yeah, although the phones still dominate.
Yeah.
The phones still dominate the viewers. Yeah, man. I mean, it's one of those things. I saw the vision early. I knew that this would happen. You know, but I also, I mean, before I became DJ Vlad, I went to UC Berkeley and I got a computer science degree. So I kind of had a level of technical knowledge that most of my peers just didn't have. So when you look at Vlad TV, like I have a programmer named Rob Cruiser. Me and him have been around together the whole time, and I probably spent over $1 million on the back end. So our back end system.
Explain that.
Well, to be able to put out this much content with a small team, you have to have a system that allows that. And there was no, out the store, out of the box system that had that. So we built it ourselves. So piece by piece, every month, every year, we kept making the system better and better, which allows for a workflow with a small team that creates a lot of content and fixes a lot of mistakes that could happen along the way. So this was something I invested in heavily. And it's a proprietary system. It's not something you could buy. It's not something you could duplicate. But I feel like Vlad TV is as much a technology company as it is a content company. And that was the approach in the beginning.
With the masterclass itself, though, because this almost feels like we giving up too much game.
That's all good.
Like I'm going to sell this interview. this is what I'm going to start. You want to see the subscription of the masterclass? Then you gotta,
Yeah.
But yeah, with the masterclass itself, so many people, we go in different directions for the hunt, the search of, and when you could say to someone, this is what you're going to get for $100. And I mean, can you find something online for free? You probably could, but it's been there and you haven't applied it.
Right. And it's not there is no selling of a dream, because a lot of times when I go live, people are like, okay, so should I put in hashtags? Does it make a difference? What if I title it a certain type of way? What if my thumbnail is a little different? And what I try to tell people, like, look, YouTube is owned by Google, which is the biggest search engine in the world. There are thousands of PhDs that have been creating this algorithm behind the search that knows how to figure out this particular human being, what they want to watch and for how long. So you think that you could juke the system by putting in a hashtag? No, you can't. Will it hurt? Probably not. Will it help? Probably not.
Right.
You see what I'm
you
saying?
had a hashtag there for you.
Yeah. I mean, if you remember, some years back, SEO was a big thing, search engine optimization, where you had all these companies that are like, hell, we'll help you optimize your website and get more search engine traffic. That doesn't exist anymore. Those people are all pretty much gone because people have realized that Google knows what they're doing. If traffic belongs on your website, they'll send it there because it's applicable. Same thing with YouTube. If you have a great video and you could get a little bit of traction on it, YouTube will go and do the rest. Wow. And you can't trick the system. And that's the whole thing about this masterclass is this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is something you have to invest years into. You have to put in a lot of time. I'm not saying it has to be your full-time job initially because, people still have to pay their bills. But this could be a side hustle that turns into a full-blown career if you take it seriously and if you put in the actual time and work behind it. There are no quick fixes, but there are a couple of, pitfalls that I let people avoid. Like, for example, one of the episodes that we put out was about demonetization. When a video turns yellow as opposed to green.
No, do you know about that?
Yeah. Okay. They know about this.
That was a test.
Yeah.
Because she and Jason, my team, all right, that was a test.
Know.
Okay.
So for example, when you have a video, right, and it gets demonetized because there's something about it that is not advertiser friendly. You're talking about, now I showed a video where, for example, we had this adult film star named Sarah J, right?
You ever heard of her, Lou?
Yes, I have.
I showed how we have an old video with her that's gotten like 7 million views, but in the past year it got about 100,000 views. That 100,000 views, because of the things that she's talking about, made $3. I showed another interview, for example, with Mano that was, brand safe, that got the same 100,000 views and it made like $350. Same video. So think about if you put out videos through the course of the year, right? The same videos, you can make 10,000 or $1 million, depending if they're monetized or not. 10,000 or $1 million for the exact same work, depending on what you do. And we show ways that we go through to make sure that we keep these videos monetized. There's like 5 different ways. Plus there's a way that Google doesn't really tell you about that we show you. We actually give you the link.
You sure didn't tell us right now either. Huh?
Right. No, it's all in there though. But that's a big deal because you put in the work and you want to actually make the revenue from the work. You know, for some people, it's just about exposure and so forth.
Right.
For me, it was never about that. This is why I've always been behind the camera. It's really more of a business for me. You know, if I could be way more famous if I just put myself in front of the camera.
Why you chose not to? Had you ever been early on, were you on camera a little bit?
I played around with it a little bit, but the thing about it is that when you remember how I mentioned the DVD days, during those days, I couldn't afford a cameraman. I was holding the camera, doing the interview, asking the questions from behind the camera. That became the style. So when I transitioned into YouTube, I just kept doing that because at the time, I still could not afford a cameraman.
Right.
By the time I could afford cameramen and so forth, it just became the style and the look. You know, I've done some stuff, you know, Lil Bibby, like, is a friend of mine. He's like, listen, if I do an interview, I want you in front of the camera or else I'm not going to do it. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do it. You know, I'm not going to turn down the interview. It was a big interview. But in general, I kind of like the flexibility. And the thing about me being behind the camera, some interviews aren't actually done in person. So, for example, you know, I interviewed Elon Musk's father. He was in South Africa, Elon Musk.
Right.
I wasn't going to fly to South Africa to do the interview, right? So we set up a camera person over there. You know, we're talking over FaceTime. Now, when it comes out, it looks like we're in the same room. But being behind the camera gives me the flexibility of doing those type of interviews and for the audience not to really know the difference between me being there and me not being there.
Right. Do you choose to be in the room now, though?
I try to. I really, whenever I can, I always try to. In fact, like at one point, instead of doing these type of remote interviews, we start flying people in. So whenever we could fly someone in, we do. But for example, with Elon's dad, he didn't want to fly in from South Africa. So we had to do it that way. But look, you could do things remotely, but being, you know, like the way me and you are here together and the energy, it's different. It's different. But listen, if you got to make it happen, you got to make it happen.
Hey, man, how important are thumbnails?
Thumbnails are somewhat important, but it really comes down to the content. You can create better thumbnails. And, you know, creating a clear thumbnail is good to do, but a great piece of content will do its job, regardless of what the thumbnail looks like.
What about people that take your material or just, you know, and it's not like we could stop it.
I mean, you can and you can't. I mean, we do file strikes. You know, listen, and one thing that we did is every single video that we've ever recorded has been copyrighted. So there's someone that actually sends stuff to the copyright office every single time. So we have a whole situation. So for example, when the Netflix of the world try to take our content, it's like, okay, you have to speak to my lawyers now.
Right,
about it. We got to work this out. You know, some people like their stuff clipped out and so forth, and we allow it to a certain degree, but at the end of the day, it doesn't translate. You could have a video of yours on Twitter that gets 2 million impressions, and your YouTube video will get like 10,000 views. So a lot of times it benefits other people more so than us.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's a business. I'm not just here trying to become popular and whatever else. Like, I'm really trying to run a serious business. And when we create our content, it's different. Look, if I'm going live and you want to clip it up, I don't care. But if it's professionally produced content, you got to think, like, some of these productions are expensive. You know, some of these people, you know, like Boosie, get, you know, substantial appearance fees to be on Vlad TV. You know, and it works out well because he gets a fee and it becomes profitable every time. It's a win-win situation. That's why we've been rocking together for so long. But to go through all that work and spend all that money and then have the entire video clipped out by some TikTok channel is annoying.
Why do you think some people have a problem with paying for guests? Like you paid that person to be there, and I'm like,
I think it's old school. I think it's an old school technology. You know, and look, there was only a few media outlets historically, NBC, ABC, a few big radio stations and so forth, you didn't have to pay. It was important. Like the person wanted to get on the platform because there was no other alternative.
Right.
If you don't do, you know, like if you're like, let's say a local LA artist, you have to get with Big Boy or you have to get with one of the big radio stations if you want to promote yourself. There's nothing else to do. But as time went on, it became a business. And I think it was during the pandemic. I think we were the first ones to actually do that, where it was like, look, some of the people, like for example, like Lunel, she talked about this herself. Right. She was going through a hard time during this time because, during the pandemic.
Yeah, comedy clubs closed down.
Comedy clubs closed down, like, and she was, she was in a situation. And I'm like, okay, let me just start putting some money in her pocket because she's been doing a lot for us. She helped get us Shaka Khan and stuff like that. It's like, let me start overpaying her to just help out. And, me, Jamie Foxx, and a few other people in her life were some of the people that really helped her out during that time that she spoke about herself. Mm-hmm. I never mentioned it until she said it. But what I started to realize is like, look, it's a business. I remember me and Birdman had a long conversation. He was like, you actually flipped it in a way where paying people for interviews have now become, people's careers. There's certain people out there, like the Charleston Whites of the world, that probably support themselves through appearance fees. Yeah. But at the end of the day, no one should really have a problem with it, right? Because if I pay you $10,000 and the video makes $20,000, we're all winning here. Mm-hmm. If I pay you nothing and you don't come, you lose out on $10,000 and I lose out on $10,000 profit, and everybody loses. And I understand there's certain, look, like 60 Minutes is 60 Minutes. I'm sure they don't pay anybody. Right. Because you have to be asked to be on that platform. So, when I do interviews, I don't charge if I'm on a promo run like I'm doing now. But there's certain outlets I have charged for. If it's a smaller outlet that just wants to get me on and I know I'm not really going to benefit because they don't have a huge platform yet, sometimes I'll do it for free, sometimes I'll charge. It goes back and forth,
Why do you think some people are afraid to do Vlad TV?
I mean, look, the Vlad is the feds. Yeah. I mean, the Vlad is the police, Vlad is the feds. And actually, like, I've been thinking recently, I need to do a set of videos where I'm going to start addressing all these various accusations, like how
for the subscribers, for the members.
No, just for everybody. No, just for everybody. Where it's like, there's always these weird rumors because, like, if someone gets arrested, the internet detectives will be like, oh, he did a Vlad interview 4 years ago where he talked about some crimes. So this must be connected. Right. But outside of the Keefe D situation, I've never heard of a single person we interviewed that our interview was used in anything they did. Now, look, like, if I go and rob a bank as I'm leaving here, people could say you're the reason why I got arrested, but you have no control over what I do when I leave. And that's what happens a lot.
And I think I was talking with Aries Spears, right?
Yes,
It was Aries. And I was like, man, a lot of people, it's not like you pull over in a white van and put a hood over and snatch somebody in. Yeah. They know exactly where they're going. Right. They got the address. Mm-hmm. They show up. Sometimes they even mic themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Everyone wears a wire that does Vlad TV. And usually they put it on themselves. They have one wire. They have a lav mic that's like in their shirt. There's another shotgun mic that's pointing at them. And there's 3 cameras that are pointing at them. Right. There is no... and my thing is, like, I've never recorded people's phone calls without their permission unless we're doing an interview over the phone, like if the person's in jail. I've never had a hot mic on somebody where they've left and we've put that out. Right, like, we've always been very careful about respecting the person who comes in.
Like, even on my end, Vlad, I got, through my career, I got some things that could have been juicier than the sit down. That I held on to, or that I deleted, and I'm pretty sure you got some things that's bigger, that's bigger than the sit down. Yeah. When someone says that you like, man, Vlad's he's the feds, does that affect you in any way, or
no, not at all?
Why?
Because it's not true.
There it is.
Because it's simply not true. I'm not the feds.
Do you ever get to where you say, "Fuck"? Here's another one.
No.
Do you ever get sometimes, dude, where you feel like people come onto your platform and they do talk too much?
Not really, because I really try to, I save people from themselves. Like, for example, Draco the Ruler wanted to do an interview while he was still in jail over that murder case that was hanging over his head. And I told his, his manager, TK Barron, that I wasn't going to do it. I said, as soon as he gets out, I got him. But I don't want to do an interview with him while he's facing a case, because this will be used in his case, and I don't want the responsibility of that. So I just told him no. And he got out, and we did an interview. Unfortunately, he tragically passed. Yeah, man. Not too long after that, with the incident at the show. But my whole thing was, I'm going to save the person from themselves, because sometimes people do want to talk a little bit too
Yeah,
much.
man.
And there's certain people I just wouldn't have on just because I know that they're reckless in their talk.
I think more so now too, man, the availability now. I see people like, I come from a school, Vlad, where, you know, I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. You know, radio was the first job I ever had in my life.
Really?
So, yeah. So
Wow, okay.
Oh,
I have I bodyguarded the Pharcyde at one point. But, you know,
Huge fan of the Pharcyde, by the way.
Man, come on,
One of the
brother.
most, I'm sorry to interrupt
please
you,
do.
but I just really got to say that Pharcyde is one of these groups, like those first 2 albums, like are so brilliant.
Yeah, man.
Especially the first one.
Yeah.
So
Bizarre Ride to the
brilliant.
Far
Bizarre
Side.
Ride to the Far Side, when they had, what was the name? Jay Swift was
Yes,
the producer.
sir. Yes, sir.
It was just so unbelievably good art that I'm just so upset when I hear people mention the Far Side and most people don't know who they are these days.
Man.
So I just wanted to give you the props
but
for
you
that.
know what's
yeah.
wild, and we'll get back to it too. But being with the Far Side at that time, and it was like the West Coast had a certain sound.
Yeah.
You know, and then there was just this movement that was going down with, you know, either the Good Life or just certain spots.
Yeah, Alcoholics.
Yeah, man,
that
Freestyle
whole-
Fellowship.
Yeah,
It was
Freestyle
just this
Fellowship, all that,
sound,
yeah.
you know, Wacko. It was just the sound that was going on. So when you had these hometown heroes that came, and it wasn't like, you know, the West Coast, like some people didn't know where the Far Side was from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't have the sound or the look that people put towards the West Coast.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I remember when I interviewed Organized Noise, and I think I was probably the only person that ever mentioned this to them. I said, when I heard the first Outkast album, I kind of heard the hieroglyphics in their delivery, and they were like, you're absolutely right.
Right.
No one's ever mentioned that before. But yeah, they were big fans of like Souls of Mischief and so forth. And Big Boy and Dre were kind of rapping like that to begin with. They evolved over time, but that first album, the Southern Playlistic, was kind of like a Bay Area homage.
And we heard it.
Yeah.
We heard it too.
Yeah.
I remember Vlad years ago when people was like, hey, Big Boy, there's this dude from in his rap group, his name is Big Boy. And I'm like, man, it was like, man. And I remember Vlad, this is what I told him. They're like, man, what y'all share the same name. I told my team and all these other motherfuckers, I said, man, I ain't tripping off of that, man. They not gonna last anyway. and I've told Big Boy, you know, that I've shared that story where I was like, man, they not gonna last anyway.
It's all good.
Yeah, one album max.
Yeah,
about
man.
to be over.
If that, I ain't gotta worry about that shit. I'm Big Boy, you know. That motherfucker. I'm like, wait, they did what?
Yeah, but to be fair, Atlanta wasn't the scene.
Right.
Yeah, that was probably the first group to really come out of Atlanta and really do well. And kind of
Now,
started
do you
that
remember
movement. So yeah, we weren't taking it seriously.
Do you
back
remember
then.
the South got something to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he got on stage?
Yeah, man.
Right.
When Andre came on stage at the Source Awards and said the South got something to say, they've been saying that shit ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As they should.
Yeah,
As they should.
Ever since, man. And when you look at it now, today is genius.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work that motherfuckers had to do to get to where they are and open up the doors. Back to people being afraid to do your show. Yeah. So do you get that where people say, man, I do want to do the show? If for whatever reason, somebody's going to say something. Do you get people that ask you, what are you going to ask me?
Yeah, we get that. But look, like when I got into it, the early plan for Vlad TV, like I said, was to put out exclusive content every single day. But the other plan was, I didn't like the landscape of hip hop media. When I felt when people did interviews, like radio interviews, it's very controlled. You don't have long form. You didn't have long form at all on the radio.
Nah.
So you had these little like 5-minute sound bites that's usually about the album or some little fun fact or whatever. And I'm like, listen, when I go get my haircut, we're not talking about this bullshit.
Yeah. And we're having a long
we're really talking about the real questions about the artist and the music and so forth. So I'm like, when I get into it, I looked up to 60 Minutes. I'm like, when 60 Minutes drops an interview, global politics sometimes change. Things happen. And I'm like, I want to be that. I want to be the person that when I sit down with somebody, I'm going to ask the tough questions. And as you know, this is not something you just learn how to do on day one. It's a craft.
Yeah.
You could ask someone anything. You could ask someone about child abuse and, prison and their family dying and so forth. But you have to know how to ease into those questions where the person feels comfortable answering them and they don't just storm out of the studio. So I've had to learn that over time about how to ease into certain things and talk about uncomfortable topics. And but that's really what I want to do. I don't want to do softball interviews. I just don't. So I've turned down interviews where they're like, well, you can't talk about this,
Right.
this. I'm like, well, then you're taking away a good interview. I'd rather just not do it.
Right.
And that's what I became known for. And then, you know, of course, the downside is, well, you're asking police questions, but I'm not really asking police questions. I'm asking about things that they've already done. They've either done jail time for, or it's way past the statute of limitations.
Right.
I mean,
you know that trip off of too, man, where if something is asked, right, or you feel like I just wouldn't do the interview. You know what I'm saying? There's just some things that I'm not going to sit down and fucking do the interview. And that's why I say when people say, oh, you know, they go and they do Vlad, and there's going to be some people that's going to be upset that I'm having this interview with you. But I have to ask, I want to know the dialogue, and I want to know the texture of what other people are feeling and how, like, I can't, for me to ask you a question, you're going to give me the answer. I can't sit here and say, man, I wonder why Vlad does this. Bring him on and ask him. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason why, and we've had many conversations. We've had many conversations. You know, we'll see each other in traffic, or we'll see each other at
all the time.
Starbucks or something, which we don't even drink coffee. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we ain't seen no fucking each other at a Starbucks. But no, I'll see you. But do you ever worry about being in public? Because some of the people that you do sit down and interview, you know, are you know, they could be hardcore, different texture, whatever it may be.
Look, I think what people need to realize is that there's social media world and there's the real world. The two of them don't really overlap all that much. People think that I'm hated all around. Like, yeah, I get a lot of hate on social media, but when I walk out of the house, 2, 3, 4 people will stop me and ask for a photo, tell me how much they love what I do.
Right.
And, you know, look, like, am I going to be hanging out in certain neighborhoods, certain areas? No, I know better. Right. But if I'm in Calabasas, if I'm in Beverly Hills and so forth, if I walk around and people recognize me, like, I get love all the time. I don't really get hate when I'm out there, you know, but I also don't put myself in situations where I could be around people that I might have a problem with.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So, for example, like, I'm here with my bodyguard, you know, at the radio station. I don't know who I'm going to run into here. I don't. I trust you.
Right.
I know me and you are good. I know in this room I'm good. But if I walk outside, you know, if I walk into the hallway, I run into someone who might have a problem with me. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm not prepared. So if I go to industry events, if I go to listening parties, if I go to certain type of things, I will bring security with me just in case. But we've never really had a problem, you know, but just to be safe.
And what about the culture vulture thing?
Another word for honky.
Right.
You know what I mean? Honky, cracker. I mean, it goes across the board. Like, this is something that white people have been called for decades and decades. And so, and the thing about it is that when you look at the other people in hip hop who are also called culture vultures, Steve Rifkin, who I worked with for a long time, Leo Cohen, who I know, like, these are massive contributors to the culture, more so than me.
Like, without Steve Rifkin, you don't have Wu-Tang, you don't have the
Big
licks.
Pun, 3-6 Mafia, Akon. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
And then somebody could say, well, he's just the slave master, the plantation owner, but he's cut from the cloth.
No, he's cut from the cloth.
Yeah.
And if you really look, because I was at SRC when all this was happening, like, yeah, Akon is a superstar now, but when he first came out, this, you know, African kid, you know, who dressed a little weird, who kind of had a look that people weren't used to, Locked Up was not an instant hit.
Right.
Akon went on a promo tour for 1.5 years that Steve Rifkin financed himself through his company, city to city to city. Think about how much money gets spent on a promo run like that. Until finally Locked Up got, you know, had some sort of traction, and then he had a bunch of other songs, and then he had a song with Eminem, and next thing you know, he's a global superstar. But it took someone like a Steve Rifkin to really believe in an artist and see that vision before everyone else does and put money and resources behind it that takes away from other easy established acts to actually break a new artist, which is the hardest thing to do in music. Let's just keep it 100. Like, if you talk about business-wise, you would have way more financial success with scratch-off lottery tickets than trying to break a new artist.
Yeah.
That's
Scratch-off lottery tickets is a better financial decision than to try to break a brand new artist. I'm not talking about signing Jay-Z. Yeah, you sign Jay-Z, and of course he's going to go multi-platinum. I'm talking about someone nobody's ever heard of, and you're like, I think this person is a star. That's an unbelievably hard thing to pull off. And you saw Steve Rifkin pull that off over and over again. You saw Leor Cohen pull that off at Def Jam when he started to run Def Jam when Russell Simmons stepped aside. All these acts under his umbrella, you know, DMX, I believe, was Jay-Z under his umbrella?
Under Leor? Yeah, he was a Def Jam guy over there.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as like before he
all
running the label
these people,
too.
Rihanna, Neo, like all these people, if these guys are culture vultures and I'm a culture vulture, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
And the reason why I do ask you that is because that comes up all the time.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that's one of those things where it's easy.
It's easy. I'm white. I'm a culture vulture. Of course I am.
It's easy, man.
It is what it is.
When somebody asks you, what do you do for the culture?
What do I do for the culture? Oh, my God. How many views on my YouTube channel? 6 billion?
Mm-hmm.
How many people have I put on and created careers for them?
Mm-hmm.
How many people have I boosted their sales, their touring, got them back in the public eye?
Their stock.
Yeah.
Stock value.
Yeah, stock value has gone up, increased their streams. People like TK Kirkland always tells me that you know, he feels like his career got transformed once he started doing Vlad TV. His bookings went way up. You know, like,
and then it's a platform too, bro.
Yeah.
Like I just recently saw a clip with you and Willie D.
Yes,
and
man.
Willie D is one of those, man. Willie D is just real in the field.
Yeah.
And Willie D not gonna fuck with it.
No, I was just on the phone with him coming here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that dude is cut from a different cloth as well, you know?
Yeah.
And it's wild because when we look at just this landscape of content, I look at people too, man, and I say, well, if we don't like this, then create your own.
Well, what
I don't mean as far as Vlad TV.
Well, I just want to say this, right? You know, in terms of the contribution. When I do an interview with somebody for the first time, I do their life story.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And for a lot of people, not everyone gets a Netflix documentary with millions of dollars behind it. But there are so many pieces that we've done on people when they pass, and we're like the only real story of their lives when they pass. People like Mo3, John Witherspoon, you know, people who we're heroes of, you know, that we've actually took the time to let them tell their story from birth up to the point that we're doing that interview. And that becomes timeless content. You know, I don't know how many college professors and students and so forth have reached out to me that told me that their thesis was based on some of my interviews and so forth. Like, I'm really here to document important people of this era, and that's what I'm going to leave behind when I leave this world.
Hey, man.
And I have a lot of it.
That John Witherspoon, your sit downs, amazing.
Thank you.
And you know what's wild about that?
That was his last interview before he passed.
And what's wild about it, too, is that where there's a lot of places that probably wouldn't have sat John Witherspoon down.
Right.
As much as he's given us.
Yeah.
In all the years. And, of course, when somebody passed, you know, we hashtag kings. I mean, just people in general.
Yeah.
Hashtag kings and, I remember such and such. But there wasn't a lot of places that brother was able to sit down at.
Not really, but I was a super fan.
Yeah.
Like, I was such a huge fan, not only of Friday, but Boomerang. And,
yeah, man.
You know, and so forth. Like, I really was so excited to do that interview. And for me, it's like to do, you know, to sit down with people like Be Real from Cypress Hill, people that I was such a fan of before I even thought of doing Vlad TV. It's such a special time for me because it comes from such a pure place. Like, I was just a fan.
Yeah, fan
the
first.
fact that me and Be Real still keep in contact, and he's been on my show and I've been on his show, like, that's special to me because I consider him one of the greatest rappers of all time. Cypress Hill had such an impact on my life. Probably started smoking weed because of Cypress Hill.
There you go.
Which I still do. But that's the whole thing. I really, when they say, what do you give back? There is so much that I've given back over the years, but people want to just focus on, oh, you did this one interview with this one gangster dude, and, you know, this is the entirety of what you do, which it isn't.
What's the tomorrows for Vlad? I know the masterclass is going down, which I think is fucking genius. And I'm going to tell you, man, I'm going to cut all that part out the interview and just start my own masterclass. Because you see people that ask like, would you rather have $500,000 or would you rather have
dinner with Jay-Z?
That is the
I'll take the 500,000.
And let me move it around. But
yeah.
that is the master class, bro.
Yeah.
Like that is the master class where you say, dude, I'm gonna tell you how this worked for me.
Yeah.
And then you take what I say worked for me, and you apply it.
I think that this masterclass is sort of the shift, is happening in the company where we're trying to rely less on just views and eyeballs because there's so much competition these days in the interview field, especially because you have actual celebrities that become podcasters.
Oh my God, man!
Right? I mean, you have people like Marshawn Lynch, Paul George, like. It's hard to compete against someone like that where so many people are just fans of, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Marshawn Lynch calls you and says, hey, I want to interview you, you're not going to say how much.
Hey, dude, yeah.
You're just going to do it.
Even when I get this.
Come on, Cat.
When I get this, man, I'll look at Shannon Sharp, right? Besides what he's going through, aside from what he's going through, which we'll talk. But I'll look and I'm like, damn, everybody, when Cat Williams told him, we was like, man, I'm not going to get nobody. And Cat Williams was like, they're all going to come. And they all did. Mm-hmm. They're all going. And I'll sit there and I can't count somebody else's pockets or I can't count their guests. But I look and I'm like, this dude got cards in front of him. He's laughing over great content with Bobby Brown saying he wish he never did drugs. He don't know the cadence, and not hating him because that's his platform. Mm-hmm. But I look at that and the same thing with podcasters, right? I'll look and I'll say at one point when podcasts first came, Vlad, we was like, man, they doing that shit because they can't get a radio job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now motherfuckers don't want no radio job. Really? Now it's the content.
Okay.
Do you think that Gilly the Kid and Wallow and anybody that you put, do they want to get up and be here at 5:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, when you can create your own shit? You could become, you are iHeart. You are, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, look, it's tough, because I remember as a DJ when I was DJing in New York, like the radio DJs got all the club gigs because they could shout out what club they're doing later that night. So all the promoters would give all the best gigs to the radio DJs. So you wanted to be on the radio just so you can keep DJing. I never was able to get on the radio. I tried, but every time I pitched, I still had to pitch my format, and they're like, "Well, this is not the radio format. You can't just sit there and do an hour-long interview. We just need 5-minute clips." And I'm like, that's not really what I do. It's not what I'm known for. So I never got on the radio. I think I did Sirius XM at one point for a short while. But yeah, I mean, it's a give and take, but not everyone wants to hustle in the same way. Some people want to show up to work, get a paycheck, go home to their families, not worry about their job, at 5 p.m. through, have their weekends to themselves, not have to worry about employees, not have to worry about putting out fires and so forth. And that's what's important to them.
Right.
Everyone's different. So radio jobs work for some people. For me.
Oh, it works for me. I ain't tripping.
Yeah.
You know what
exactly.
I'm saying?
You've done great with it. You've done great with it.
But also you'll start to see, even with radio too, Vlad, it's like with radio, people used to say, man, oh my God, I listen to your show. I listen to your show. I listen to your show. And I just happened to be 500 pounds. I had billboards, so I was recognizable. But radio is a, sight unseen, voices that's heard. You just heard the voice. Oh, you got a face for radio, all the shit that would happen, But that was radio.
Yeah.
Now, Vlad, there's nowhere in the world that I'll go that I'm not recognized. Nowhere in the world. And people come up to me, Vlad, and you get the same thing. They say, I watch your interviews.
Yeah.
Not I listen.
I watch.
I watch your interviews. Yeah. And then now with the younger demographic, they don't talk about your radios. They say, man, I listen to your podcast. Or you're the guy from the podcast.
Yeah.
So that world, as the world turns, this is the changes that we're seeing. That I'll say, you know what? It's ownership. It's creating your own content.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If there's a gatekeeper, build your own fucking gate. If you can't get a seat at the table, build your own table.
Yeah.
And if there's gatekeepers, then move further down the gate and make your own interest into the motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, when you say you got 6 million subscribers, that is built. That's 6 million people that did this.
Subscribe. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That hit it.
Yeah.
And there is not too many production companies. There's not too many big, networks that can say we can directly go to 6 million people. And we have this 6 million people. We have the database. We know how to get it. That's a power that now when we see these networks that they had, people consume their information from us.
Yeah.
People not saying, oh man, there's shows now that don't exist that we used to sit down and watch. Arsenio Hall was great.
Yeah.
Soul Train was great. All these shows that don't exist.
Rap City.
Yeah. Because now
the OMTV Raps.
It's right in front of us, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also to answer your question, I mean, in terms of where I'm going, the shifts with memberships and the masterclass is a direction that I'm trying to go to because you have a lot more control over these situations. You really, fighting for eyeballs is cool and having great content, and we'll always have a public aspect of what we do. But I've really learned over time that there's a lot more stability when you have actual paid memberships, that people actually renew their membership every month and so forth. It doesn't fluctuate in the same way. And even when you look at YouTube, ad rates fluctuate.
Right.
First quarter, and you could, on radio, I'm sure it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
First quarter is always the lowest amount of money you'll get. Fourth quarter, when everyone's Christmas shopping and everything else like that, that's the most money that you'll get for the same number of views. So you have to work within these kind of guidelines when you're just doing ad-based content. But when you actually have content that people are paying for, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
January, December, whatever.
With the not just on the masterclass side, or even on going behind the wall with the paid subscription parts, right? Is that a button that they click every month? Oh, okay.
No. Once they click it, they're subscribed every month.
Okay,
now
cool.
They could unsubscribe, but yeah, they subscribe every month.
And you know what I love about that too? Because I've been paying for a gym since 1988.
Right. That's how gyms make money.
Hell yeah, by you not fucking hit.
Yeah.
Or have
and
you
you
ever,
feel guilty when you cancel, even though you haven't gone in 2 years.
Hey, dude, that's when you
I was going to go next week.
Like, no, I'm going to get in, man. The top of the year is coming. The top of the year is coming, man.
Right.
If I go now, it's more now, and but yeah, that's one of those things, man, where it's like, okay, it's there. Because there's sometimes I look at my subscriptions. And I'll be like, man, what the fuck is this?
Right.
And then I'm looking like, oh, I did click that. And then the next year, it's like, oh, we're back.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's with this is that it's daily content in some capacity.
Right, because even on the basic membership side, like we put out 15, 20 interviews a month. So every few days, members get something exclusive.
Well, you put out how many?
Maybe 15 to 20 interviews a month.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, my producer Jason, see, Big, listen. Listen to him, Big.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this is where the repeat guests started to come in, because we knew that we weren't going to be able to get new people every single month, every single year. So this is where people like Boosie, TK Kirkland, Tony Yayo, Esquino, 1090 Jake, we have a whole list. And this is where the back end system comes in, because we keep track of who's been on recently, who hasn't been on recently, how many views they got last time, everything, So
you have an all-star team.
Well, an all-star team and an all-star system.
Right.
To back up the team.
Even with us, we know that there's some guests that we'll say, okay, we got them on a 30-day, 60-day, and a 90-day rotation.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because we know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And look, every interview that I do, I can look to see whether it was profitable or whether it lost money. We're not always making money. There's some interviews where we overpay the appearance fee, or it just doesn't get the views we were expecting. So it is what it is. But now that we actually have control over the finances and what's happening on the back end, we can make more intelligent decisions moving forward.
Do you pay most guests?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No. Well, we pay every repeat guest. We always pay, unless it's a barter. You see what I'm saying? So, for example, there was this really kind of cool moment that happened maybe about a month ago on No Jumper. It was me, Adam22, DJ Academics, Whack 100, Trap Lore Ross, and Remo, all in one room. Everyone gets along. Everyone's everyone is doing. Everyone's doing each other's platforms. I'll do Adam22, then he'll do Vlad TV. I just did Academics. I'm going to New York. He'll probably do my show. Math Hoffa, all these people. Because I've always thought, it's funny because me and Cruz were talking about this outside before the show. In radio, you can't be cool with the other big radio station in your city.
Right.
You can't have other people walking through this hallway. They're at a competing station. But for me, I've always been the opposite. Every new media person that's come in, I've always embraced. Back to Charlamagne. Charlamagne will tell you that I'm the first person to put him on outside of South Carolina. You know, when I was doing the beef mixtapes. DJ Academics, I reached out to him early. Sean Cotton, I reached out to him early. Adam 22, I reached out to him early. All these people, I reached out to him early and had them on my platform and said, listen, if you need any help whatsoever, here's my number, just call me. And over that, we've developed a friendship and a business relationship where we've all benefited. You know, if I find out something like, oh, listen, here's something you could do on YouTube that'll maximize a certain, money on this regard, I'll go and tell all these people.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Like if there's a...
Hey, Wack, go ahead and subscribe. $100 masterclass.
Yeah, shout out to Wack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his own platform on, what do you call it? The audio platform. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
Yeah, he's like the king of Clubhouse.
Yeah, man.
So he'll do my show and I'll do Clubhouse.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I've always felt it's better for everyone to get along and everyone to work together because there's enough eyeballs to go around.
Mm-hmm.
I know that radio works a little bit differently.
Right.
I don't think there's a way around that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's wild with radio.
There's ratings
because you
so
can be
forth.
cool outside the building.
Yeah, but in the building.
You definitely not going to be walking through and be like, hey, what they doing in there?
I try to be that there's very few people in hip-hop media that say they don't get along with me.
Right, and I get along with radio people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My thing is, if there's something personal, then I never trip off the marquee or the call letters. You know what I'm saying? If there's a problem personally, then I'll deal with it accordingly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If I don't fuck with you personally, which there's been a couple that I've had to step to, but that wasn't on no radio shit.
Yeah,
It's just
me and you had a few disagreements over the years, but we've always worked it out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things where you do. And I think anything that we had was more of a misunderstanding.
Every time.
As opposed to when we see each other, we just gonna lock up. You know what I'm saying? But it's wild, man, because this whole thing that we're doing, this shit is changing.
Yeah.
And certain things that we had yesteryear don't fucking exist today.
Right.
And even when we were talking about the people that want to, do the 9-to-5s, which is beautiful, but we saw during the pandemic, a lot of people had to pivot.
Yeah.
And if you're in a position where you can pivot and you can create a different income and outcome for you, do that shit.
Look, like when the pandemic hit, we couldn't send camera crews. Like people didn't want to come to studios. People didn't want to have other people in their vicinity.
Yeah.
So we actually figured out a system where we actually found a low-cost set of mics and recorders and like a light and a stand, and we would actually send people a kit. Like me and E40, we did the interview like this because he was paranoid about getting sick, and I understand that. You know what I'm saying? He's
like, I ain't going out there, Playboy.
Yeah, he's a little bit older. He's a little bit older. He wasn't trying. Like, listen, I lost a few people during the pandemic. Shout out to my man DJ K-Slay, who passed away. Fred the Godson. People that have been on my show that I had relationships with. So we sent him a kit. He set it up. He was working with my video team, and it looked like a whole professional setup. But it's really in his house with a kit that we sent him that he can keep afterwards. We don't want it back. Yeah, so we found a low-cost solution. You have to pivot. You have to figure out a way to keep making money when your regular way is not working. And then the pandemic, everyone ultimately made a ton of money during that time.
Yeah, man.
So it actually worked out, but we had to figure out a way to do it because we couldn't meet with people face to face.
Hey, man, Shannon Sharp just recently, did he just block you recently?
I think
or
so.
Had you, oh, my God,
so.
dude. Come on, Cat.
I think he did.
Hey, man, why do you think he blocked you?
I mean, me and Shannon have never really had a great relationship, if you want to call it that. When I first ran into him at a Jordan All-Star party, we talked, he knew who I was. I'm like, oh, you should do Vlad TV? Okay, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. We exchanged numbers, then I kept getting the runaround year after year after year after year. And I just don't really respect people that do that.
Right.
And that's the part about entertainment I've always hated, and I've always been against that. Like, if someone asks to do my show, and I know that it's not a good match, I'll just tell them, and I'll explain to them why. Me and Bootleg Kev, we had a conversation that on the air. He wanted me to do my, he wanted me on a show, and I explained to him like, your following is not there yet, but I see the potential, and once the following gets there, I'll do your show. And I just recently did a show.
Yeah, I saw that.
But I told him flat out why I wasn't doing it. Whereas in entertainment, people are like, yeah, I got you. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, call me. Yeah, we'll set it up next week with no intention whatsoever of doing that. And I don't like that Hollywood shit.
Yeah.
I just don't like it. So if you do that to me, we're probably not going to be on good terms moving forward. And I think that kind of set the tone for me and him.
Who, for you and
Shannon
Sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, man. And when you see what's going on with Shannon now, I'm like, dude, like we building empires. Yeah. Are we really throwing this shit away for 19-year-olds stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I posted a video of that girl. It's
Yeah,
like
that's what Louis
5
said.
million impressions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think you would crash out over something a little better looking than that. But,
Yeah.
you know,
That's what I was saying.
That's what everyone was thinking.
I was
Every
remember
man
Louis, I was
looking
telling
at
you, I
that,
said,
like-
man, show me the picture.
Yeah.
Show me the video that this is the reason why. Like, you know, like for one, there's not a picture you could show me that I'd be like, oh yeah, 50 million, hell yeah. 10 million, hell yeah. But I looked at that and I'm like, this is it?
This?
Oh yeah, this is her right here.
Yeah.
This is her.
Yeah, that's the video I posted.
And that one right there is
That's probably
the
got my-
better one.
Yeah, that's the better one.
Yeah, man. Oh my Lord, bro. Yeah, he's like if you gonna crash out, throw shit away like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah,
at least get some shit.
Megan Thee Stallion, I get it.
Yeah.
But that, come on
At
now.
least get some shit where we say like,
I
maybe.
get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least when we like,
Shakira,
maybe.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right. That? Come
Yeah,
on, man.
Come on, cat. Come on, cat. You know, Vlad, thank you for coming into the neighborhood, man.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm telling you, man, you're going to see my masterclass subscription for real.
Okay.
Because there is no such thing called too much information.
No.
And my thing is, man, I don't know it all. And we are learning every fucking day, bro.
Yeah, we all are. Man.
Every day.
Yes.
So, man, thank you for coming in
Thank you
and
for
sharing
having
that
me.
knowledge, man. And I know you gave us so much game, I probably owe you a couple thousand just in subscribe. No? Okay. You saw it.
You said it, bro.
Yeah, I saw it.
You said it.
No, but thank you for coming into the neighborhood, man.
Nah,
is there any
this is
way, aside from just Vlad TV, that because you're right there on YouTube, is there a social media platform just right there?
Vlad TV on Instagram, DJ Vlad on Twitter. That's the main account. We're also on Snapchat. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook as Vlad TV. Yeah, we're all over the place.
How much are you on hands-on?
Depends.
Right.
Depends.
And just being Vlad, how much content do you have to look? Do you have a team that they can go automatic, or do you have to look at everything?
No, I don't look at everything.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I feel
unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm not happy about this, but unfortunately, I'm the main talent at
Yeah.
Vlad TV. You know, we tried other interviewers. My man Sean Perez, he does
Yeah,
well.
man.
You know, Lunel has done some stuff and so forth. But unfortunately, the bulk of the interviews falls on me, and I have a staff of 11 people that I have to keep feeding content to for them to keep functioning. But I mean, look, I do most of the interviews. I don't do any of the editing. I do some of the titles, but not all the titles. I don't do any of the write-ups. The write-ups are pretty much done by AI now.
Jesus Christ.
You know, we have sound people, we have quality assurance people, we have finance people, and so forth. I have an assistant, Evan.
Oh, wait,
So-
hold on. This starting to sound like a company.
Yeah, it is. It
Oh,
is
okay.
a company. It is a company.
All right, well, I'm bullshitting there.
So yeah, I mean, it's you know, I overlook everything. And look, when something goes wrong, it is my fault.
But you got the right people in the right position,
Yes.
and you know how to delegate to the right person.
right.
That's what business is.
Yeah, no, it's a real team. It's a real company. It's not a hustle. There's no interns. There's no contractors. Every person's a full-time employee with benefits. Everyone has health insurance, dental insurance,
Oh, yeah.
everything else like that. No, don't mention that around here. Yeah, about to have an uproar here.
Be nice. Good coverage, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Hell yeah,
Vlad do comedy, too.
Yeah,
He do, man. He working on the comedy channel, too, man.
Dental?
Yeah, man. Fucking Vlad, man. Yeah, he doing a master comedy class.
Master comedy class.
That's coming up, man. Yeah.
Sick.
Hey, man, I was just having that conversation
that,
yesterday.
man.
Somebody was talking. I was like, man, we don't have no dental and all this shit over at Big Boy TV. You know?
Vlad TV got dental, man.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Well,
I was just saying.
oh, well. Anybody want to go over there?
I'm good right now.
Leave with him now. leave with him now. Hell yeah.
These are testing our loyalty.
Yeah. Nah. If anybody want to go, go. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing but paradise over there.
All right.
All right, man. Okay, tell me which one. Do y'all want the 6 million? Or do you want the 1.5?
I learned a couple things with Big Boy I could probably bring over there too.
Yeah.
Need a bell?
Take him all the shit so his channel go down. You know what I'm saying? Really? Are you into crypto? Okay.
No, I'm into stocks though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot your stock.
Yeah.
How we do?
That might be another tier of the membership
masterclass?
also. Yeah. Originally, I was going to do Vlad. Well, Vlad Stocks has been a thing for a while.
Yeah, I know.
I really like talk to a lot of people and help people make millions of dollars just off of
Damn.
telling
Talk
them
to
what
me.
I would do. Yeah, we'll have a conversation.
Hey man, but do you feel like right now is the time with what's going on with the tariffs and the economy and we're not giving out any advice, financial advice here.
Look, if my money's being spread around right now, but if I had an extra $1 million right now, I would be throwing into the stock market like crazy because these are the times that the fortunes are made. The stock market over time has always recovered.
Yeah.
These tariffs are not going to be around in 20 years. This is just a play that Trump is doing, which is what I think.
I want my shit now. I don't want to leave it for my kids.
No, well, you got to look at it long term. And if you put your money like in the S&P 500 at any point in history over 150 years, and you kept it there for at least a few years, you've always made money.
Mm-hmm.
There's 100% winning record by doing that. So if you're looking at it long term, and that's what I did. Like when I first started making money in 2010, I threw all my money to the stock market, and Google stock, Amazon stock, Tesla stock.
Yeah, man.
I'm not talking about these weird, obscure companies, penny stocks or
You
whatever
just gonna
else.
buy
These are
the
companies.
tops.
Yeah, and I don't have a financial advisor or anything else like that. I learned from what Warren. I read Warren Buffett's books. I read the books that he learned from Benjamin Graham, and saw the methodology of what he does, dollar cost averaging, and so forth. And I just chose companies that I really use and I really believe in. Like. There's lots of ways to make money. People are like, go to NVIDIA or go to this. Like, I don't know what NVIDIA is in terms of the business, but I do know Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I use Amazon every single day.
Yeah.
I know that there is no number 2 after
Right.
Amazon. Walmart is way back behind Amazon. Who buys stuff from Walmart every day as opposed to Amazon?
Yeah, I buy shit just out of convenience.
Yeah, exactly. Like Vlad TV is built on the Google and YouTube platform, so I understand the strength of that platform, which is why I always have been reinvesting in Google year after year, decade after decade. I drive a Tesla. I understand how these cars, like, when I got rid of, my lease ended on my Model X Plaid, and I test drove every other electric car, like the BMW i7, the Maybach, the new not the Rolls Royce, but the new Cadillac electric. These were all cool cars, but technology-wise, they're way behind. They're still 5-6 years behind where Tesla is. So I ended up buying the exact same car again because I believe in the product. So I don't mind putting money in Tesla, even though the stock is down right now.
Right.
And if you have the money to invest in a down market, when it eventually goes up, this is where most of your money is going to be made. All this money is made during these catastrophes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really think the stock market is going to go to zero? Do you really think that Amazon is going to go completely out of business?
Right.
Do you think the Amazon stock will be worth $0 in our lifetime?
Man, you see the game we just gave them?
Nope.
In our lifetime.
Hey man, that's your next masterclass.
Yeah. Yeah, no, listen, this is originally what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the Vlad Stocks thing, but I was a little bit on the fence about it because I did the masterclass on the YouTube side just because I felt I was more of an expert on the YouTube side. I felt like I was a world expert on the YouTube side. But now that I've seen that this actually works, I am thinking about doing the stock, stock tier as well.
We should. You know, so I say we. Vlad, thank you for coming into the neighborhood.
Thank you
my
for
brother.
having me. It's truly an honor, man. My first time in this building.
Man.
And you and I really have a real relationship.
And it
we
won't
talk
be your
a lot,
last,
man.
bro.
Congrats on everything you've done, man.
Man, thank you, brother. And like we said,
when you said this is your first job in 30-something years, I had to really wow.
I never had a job in my life.
Wow.
Until I got into radio.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
That's great.
That's a whole different sit down. I'll tell you when I come down.
Yeah, you got to come do Vlad TV, man.
People going to be like, man, Big got himself locked up. Oh, Vlad, you should have saw me back in the days, man.
Yeah. Well, next time, Big Boy will be on Vlad TV.
I was a fucking mess, Vlad. You know what I'm saying? Well, thank you for coming into the neighborhood. Vlad in the neighborhood, Big Boy in the neighborhood.